important, on a scale of 1 to 10, how important do you think communication with your team, or in general, communication at work, is important on the scale of 1 to 10? And if you can just put it on the chat box, that would be really good. That was really quick, Julie. Yes, I think we all agree that, communication is certainly a really important subject. And in communication, we don't only have, the communication verbal, which is probably the trickiest of all, although we do communicate a lot written in the business environment these days, but it's certainly very much an important subject, because that's the only way we can really get things done together as a unit. So today we're going to talk about, transforming SPA team dynamics, to master effective communication. And ultimately, we will be seeing, how do we communicate in terms of all of these aspect of generation, but not only multi-generation, but also multicultural aspect. So we won't be able to touch on everything, because I always say it's like an onion. Communication is like an onion with a tons of layers. And yes, sometimes we cry because of that. But at the end, we will touch more on generation today, and we'll see about the differences and how we can actually create a better communication strategy with all of our environment which we work, because we are in an evolving world, and it's absolutely vital that effective leaders understand the specificity of different generation and culture. It's also vital to foster the difference into each of them and leverage the different talent. And it's also super important to make sure that we kind of try to have a smooth communication, but smooth is never going to be very smooth. So it's smooth with mountains and valleys, okay? Because we will never be able to communicate faster or better, as we think we could. So then we can go to the next one. And unfortunately, I've got a bunch of little things, so you can just press along the way. I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Fabienne Lindholm. I'm an author. I'm also a learning and development executive. I've been in the learning and development sphere for many years now, over 30 years. And I am kind of what I call self-made, and I'm a consultant as well as a trainer and a coach. I have a passion for people, and my experience comes from actually being a technician, which I started my career in the spa industry as an esthetician and massage therapist about 35 years ago. And then I moved up into many different layers of managements to arrive to where I am now as a consultant, a trainer, and a coach. So I've practiced, in Europe, and I'm originally from France. And I have also worked for a very, very long time in the United States. And that's where maybe you can pick up my American accent when I speak English, because I lived in the US for almost 30 years until about, about 7 years ago when I returned here in Europe. And now located in Belgium. And I do really business all over the world as a consultant and a coach. So here's a little bit about me. If you want to know more about me, you can, of course, reach out and then we can talk. So you might want to continue to push those little button in, and because it's got a few keywords about who I am and what I was saying. So. So what are we going to see right now? We are going to talk, of course, about we're going to touch up a bit about company culture because I always think it's super important no matter what we do. We're going to talk about generation. We are going to talk about structure of communication. We're going to talk about our communication style also, and we'll have a little bit of fun. I'm not sure if I can play videos, but I do have a couple links on my on the PowerPoint, so hopefully we can play those. So first is company culture. So like I said, this should be like a full webinar. Actually, it's a full workshop, company culture. So I just want to touch on that because I believe it's the foundation and everything. And your communication needs to be based on your company culture. Whatever has been decided, if you are an existing business that has been around for a long time, or if you're brand new, you need to actually create a company culture. And in my experience of being in this industry or working with companies for years, there are a couple elements that are absolutely essential, and without that you can't go anywhere. First is make sure that in your company culture you have a sense of purpose, a sense, a meaning of what behind this company is there. In French we always say raison d'être. It's really about why is this business here? What does it do? How does it serve the community? How does it serve the world? And that's the purpose and the meaning behind it. And that's really important. And communication should certainly be based on some of that. And then the other one that's super important is a trusted environment, because no one will open their mouth if they don't feel safe. They don't feel that they are in an trusted environment. And sometimes it takes a really long time to create that. When you're brand new, it's actually really much easier. Not easy, but it's much easier. But if you are an existing business or you're enter an existing business and you want to change the communication structure, this is something that may need to be completely redone or looked over or reorganized. And that's really important. And of course, values and curiosity. And there's a gazillion other ones, which is all based on emotional intelligence. But, again, as I said, this will take too long to talk about this on this webinar here. But of course, if you're interested in learning more about it, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be happy to have a conversation or discuss further with you. So, what is important is understanding the generational differences. That's what we're going to see right now. It's really looking at the different generation. And I want to make sure we understanding each other. When we talk about generation, it's just a guideline. We're not judging anyone here. We're not, pretending to say certain things that are going to put people in boxes, because every human is unique. And in our uniqueness, there's so many components in it. And one of them is generation. It's not only that, because in terms of generation, there are so many aspects of culture, environment, family, experiences. There's so many components that comes in play, and our brain creates all these different files that actually, it's like a computer, our brain. It creates these files that we go back and reuse all the time. And one of the component is certainly the generation. And so there's actually a link on this part here. I picked up something on Instagram which makes me laugh every time. It's a very short video, and it's totally a bit biased actually in terms of generation. I look at the images and look at the person, and listen to the actual music if you can. It's really funny, and it gives you a bit of what this sphere looks like and what most people actually talk about when they talk about the different generation at work. I don't know if that works for you, Sarah. And I'm not sure if you can hear the sound. I don't hear the song, but I don't know if you do. Did anyone hear the song? No. Okay. Well, anyway, what's funny is that you can see it starts with the baby boomer generation, and then it goes into the Gen Xers, and then it goes into the millennial and the Gen Z. And you can see the attitudes that is, created. The baby boomer comes home and he's great. And the Gen Xer is a little bit more, kind of, okay, I'm ready to do something else. And then the millennials is like, okay, wait, right now I'm exhausted. And then you Gen Z at 2 o'clock in the afternoon is already ready to just stop working. So it's kind of a funny, and you can find this video on Instagram. I think it's really a kind of a, let's say, a bit of a fun aspect of showing the different generation. So I see someone, Andrea, thank you for making a comment here. Love this at a starting point. Ageism happened in all directions, and the divide between Gen and gens of tens feels pretty wide. It's true. It's true. But there's so much we can do in order to get and help how to work together, because everyone has amazing, I'd say, talents to share. So I don't know if you know, but, and please, stop me if you have any questions, and tap in the chat box. You can certainly answer any question as we go along. Make comments. Thank you for comments. It's always good to have them. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with generation, but generations are usually based on societal events. So it has nothing to do, it's not like every 15 years, although it's looking kind of like that, but it's not always that. It really depends on the event that happens in society. For many, many years, we were so divided between Americas and Europe and Asia that there was not much correlation. But now the world is one. It's so global that even though there might be a few little things in terms of the different continents, but we do find them across the board. So the four generations that are in the work environment right now, it's the baby boomers, the Generation X, the millennials, and the Gen Z. And I'm going to go through each one of them, but you'll see that, again, it is based on their environment, and only the environment of their area. So maybe in the UK might be a bit different than in France, and they might be a bit different than in the US or in Asia, but there's so much connection that it's quite funny. So the next thing is, I'd like to hear from you. Which generation do you belong, based on what we just said? So baby boomers is the after war, is 1946 to 1964. Gen X is 1965 to 1980. Millennium is 1981 to 96, and Zs are 1997 to 2012. There's a new generation coming on board, which is millennials. No, I'm sorry, alphas. And alphas are actually the generation for alpha started in 2013, and it's right now there's discussion whether it's ending now in 2025 or ending in 2030. But a lot of these generations are also based on technology and what happens with technology. And because technology is going so fast, that a lot of experts are saying that actually alpha is probably going to end in 2025 because of AI being so present everywhere, that we're going to probably start a new generation. And with some of the economical changes around the world right now, that could also be it, but it hasn't been firmly defined. So I see we got millennials and X's. Okay. Very good. Very good. Well, in the, like, as I said, what you're going to find in your group, and that's something, as I'm speaking, I would like for you to think about your team. and to think how many of each. I mean, if you have a huge team of 50 people, it might be difficult. So kind of write it down, because it will be really interesting for you to know which is which, and how many of each do you have. So baby boomers. So their key trait is loyalty, hardworking, stability, and value. Again, I'm not trying to put people in the box here, so it's really flexible. There might be boomers that are not like this. Okay, the exception makes the rule, I always say. So they're in general strong commitment. They're like formal leadership, so they like to be guided through what they need to do. They of course have a lot of experience, and they're absolutely really great with people skills. So you want to have your baby boomers close to your guests and your clients, because they are going to have more experience on how to deal with others, and because they have very stable, I'd say, value, they tend to be a bit more formal in terms of dealing with clients. So of course, if you get a 5-star place and spa or hotel, you definitely want to make sure you might want to have more baby boomer closer to your guests. Of course, their challenges is technology. So they're not really interested in technology, or they could be, but they're not that good in technology. So the next one is our Gen Xers. So Gen Xers are certainly very independent and pragmatic. So they're extremely adaptable. The wonderful thing about a Gen Xer is that you give them a project, it'll be done. They don't need anyone to tell to do it. They will be making it happen. But the bad thing with that is that they're going to do it alone, and they're not going to connect with others, and they're not necessarily going to collaborate and ask others what they think. So in a team, it can be a bit challenging, but if you know you've got a project that needs to be done quick and fast, and then you want someone to take responsibility and leadership, your Gen X will be really good. And Gen X are actually very comfortable with technology. They don't know it so well, but it's the generation that had to learn the technology on their own. They actually started to work with no technology, and they ended up having to learn computers and iPhones and iPads and all of the platforms that are around. And they've actually done a good job, but they're certainly not experts. The next one is your millennials. So millennials are definitely tech savvy, and they're very collaborative. So for them, it's really important to collaborate. So sometimes millennials and Xers clash, because the Xer is going to want to do it quick. Let's make it happen. And then the millennials going to want to talk about it and collaborate in it and ask questions and work as a unit, which is absolutely wonderful, because it's collective intelligence. So sometimes there's a bit of a clash with the other personality or the other generation in the group. Millennials are also the one that brought purpose to work. Prior to that, no one really talked about purpose, but millennials were the first one to bring it into work and actually make it a subject. Were they very successful at making it part of work? No, but they did plant the seed and brought it in. They're usually very technology savvy, and they're really great at creating cohesion with others. And then you have your Zs, which is now about 27% of the workforce. So if you're having trouble with the Zs, you know what, at the end, you're going to have to make it work, because that percentage is growing and growing even more. And they're absolutely wonderful to work with when you know exactly what they're looking for. And for them, having a purpose, it's no longer something that was brought into the work. For them, it's the most important aspect of work is a purpose, is a meaningful environment, a meaningful reason of going, doing what they're doing. So that's why I was saying at the beginning, in the culture of creating your culture, it is super important that you define that, because that's one thing they don't want to know. If you don't talk about the purpose of your company, if you don't know if you don't talk about how do you serve, then automatically they're not going to be, very, I'd say, adaptable. They're very adaptable. So they're, of course, extremely savvy in technology. And I usually often say they might not be the best person to be in the front with your guests. I say, why don't you put them in the back to start with and have them work on structure of technology and organize a certain aspect, because they're so fast. They think so quickly and they can get tasks done also very quickly because they use technology to do so. So one thing that's really important is really finding out what motivates them, because of wanting to have a purpose, what motivates them is more important than what is motivating, others. Okay. So first you're going to say what's in for me, what's in for the team, and what's in for the world. Okay. Versus you millennium and Gen X are going to be more about, oh, what's in for the work, and what's in for the world, and then what's in for me. So it's kind of switching things around. So when you have all these people around in your team and you've got all four, you certainly need to make sure you do a one-on-one and find out what motivates them. That's a big one. So any question on generation up to now?
I think it's really interesting that I'd never really thought about where you would put the person, um, where depending on where you would have them in your business, because actually some of the sort of best loved front of house people in some of the luxury hotels are, as you say, the older generation of person.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I'd never really picked up on it, but now you can kind of compare that, can't you, to real life scenarios where people do thrive more depending on whether
Yeah.
they're in front of people or not. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think, and also as I said, this is one the layer of the onion. Okay, there's a couple other layers underneath. You just have to peel that. And I said sometimes you're gonna cry about it, but that's okay. So okay, let's look now at communication tools. And before we get into communication, so one thing I wanted to talk about is that general communication. What's the difference between listening and hearing? And verbally in general, and in written is similar to this, but verbally, certainly, there is first is the awareness of someone talking, then there's the interest of what's being said, and then we start making a decision. Do I want to listen more or start thinking about what's saying, and then we go into action. So we also have to really understand that there's a lot of misunderstandings sometimes when we listen and when we hear, because you always have to think about, even if you're speaking, what I want to say. What is it truly what you want to say? And just make sure it's clear and simple. And then often we want to say something, but actually what we say is not quite the same. And then whoever is hearing, and then what is the other have heard of what I just said? What did that person listen to? What did they understood? Because there's all that perceptions, and again, using experience and environment and culture and stuff. There's all of that component that comes away. What did they believe? What did they learn? Did they learn something? What I said? What did they interpret or pursue? And what did they decide to do? So think about these things when you're talking and you're having a meeting with your team, just to make sure that you're not over communicating and you're really clear, and you're clear that every person in there is going to really get the point. based on what you know from your team and who they are. So keep that in the corner of your mind somewhere. Okay, so first of all, in communication, yes, who are we communicating with? What are we using to communicate? And how do we communicate? So we're going to look at a few things. And I thought this was fun to look at different aspects in each generation. So we're going to start with who we communicate with. So there's, of course, something you need to think about is generation, as I said, multicultural heritage, of course, and personality trait. I don't know if anyone is using any personality test for their team when they get hired, or if they use the disc system, and it's very common with the color, the blue, red, yellow, green. If you do, put it in a chat box, but that really gives you a bit of an understanding of the personality trait. And then, of course, all these other things come down before. So you've done disc before. Okay, it's very common, and a lot of companies are using that. So leadership circle. Okay, good. Okay, very nice. So you need to make that into your factor of personality trait, multicultural heritage, and generation. So let's look at actually how do we bridge communication with also, because there's a big difference with all of the words and the style that we are all using. When I'm speaking, most people know I'm a Gen Xer because some of the words that I'm using, and so it's really interesting because there are a lot of components, and now we have so much in our communication that is done with drawing, we can say, or images, that it can sometimes be very misleading. So if we go on the next slide, this will give you a snapshot of communication for boomers, so the icons they like to use, it's the thumb up, the smiley, the briefcase, the telephone, because they like to use telephone mostly. And then the words that they like to use, they reliable, hardworking, loyal, structures, experience. So when you're talking with them, these are the words that really resonate with them. If you want to give them a great compliment, you want to say to them, you're so reliable, you're very experienced. So those are the words that means a lot to them because it resonates. And then the common phrases that a boomer will use is circle back, chain of command, put into work, FaceTime, due diligence. So again, when you're working with a boomer and you want them to be doing something specific, using some of these common phrases will help them to really understand what you are really looking for, what you want. So that's for boomers, and those are a few. It's not all of them, of course. For Xers, that you see the icons are a little bit different there. We get the computer screen, which is more the laptop. We've got cool, the glasses. It's really cool. That words, Xers use quite a bit. A few other things, in terms of, being brainy and calendars. So their words is independent, pragmatic, balanced, skeptical, resourceful. So that's also when you talking and working with them, this is also something you can have them bring to the team and to make them the champion of resourceful, or the champion of being a more balanced. You can also, they're very skeptical, so they will tear apart what you're offering, and they'll find the glass half empty sometimes. But if you really want to know what they're thinking, or what they're, you want to look at the negative sides of things, you can always ask an Xers to look into it. And then again, some of the key phrases here, figure it out. That's really big. Keep it professional, efficiency, low maintenance, work-life balance, because it's important to them, not as important as the other one, but it's still part of what they're looking for. So millennials, and then some of you are millennial in here, so you can maybe tell me if this is correct. So some laugh out loud. That
I,
was very
I should sort
millennial.
of, I just, that's probably my most used emojis. I'm laughing because those are my most used emojis right there. Fabienne, you've hit it on the head. I had to step in and say that.
So I think that's again, a boomer looking at this, laughing out loud, or even looking at fire. That's fire. They might not know what that means. So need to explain that, and having workshop where every single of your team member can explain what they mean with these emojis. Same thing with the adjective that they're using, common phrases. Let's co-create. As I said, it's collaborate, disrupt, unbrand, adulting, and hack. Like a hackathon, which is a big aspect of a workshop now. It's a hackathon. So you can use some of these that makes the millennials feel more at ease, and they're really good at collaborating. So having them doing workshop and hackathon, they're really good at that. And then we've got the Z's, of course. So our Z's, so the icons, so it's really funny because I don't know all of these icons very much, but I know them because my sons are using them sometime. And I had a really hard time with the skeleton. At first, I'm like, what the heck is that? And so I was like, okay, can you explain that to me? Sometime I'm having with my kids these vocabulary sessions so they can explain me what they're saying. But one of the things that are really so funny is all of these common phrases, like it's a given, no cap. I don't know if everyone knows what means no cap. It's no lie. Uh, main character energy. So that's mean you're just the main person. You're the one that drives everything. It's given. It's like reminds me of. It can be the vibe of someone. So that's what it means. It's given. Slay means nail it. So you slayed that presentation. You nailed it. And then ick, I've never really heard that from my kids, but ick is about something that is a bit sick, kind of not so nice, more negative. So these are some of the things, and I'm not saying that if you an Xer, you're going to start talking like this, or a boomers, you're going to start. No, you're not. But at least when you hear it, you know what's happening. And again, the baby boomer that's working with the Gen Z needs to know all of this. They need to really be aware that this is how they talk. And so it's creating these components to really create a best dynamic. And it's kind of funny when a boomer is going to start saying it's fire. It just makes it everyone kind of smile, and everyone feel like they belong. So it's creating this environment where all the dynamics of everyone feels really kind of a sense of belonging. That's what it is. So what do we have next? Well, I just explained why it matters. Yes, as much as I just said, really here, it's really why it matters. It really creates that sense of belonging between everyone, and that sense of understanding each other. So you don't have in your team, the boomers are always complaining about the Z's and vice versa, and everyone's complaining about everyone. Let's find out each other's talent, and let's make sure everyone brings something to the building, or to build up this. So one thing is important is looking ahead also with the alpha generation. You're not, I think in your work environment, you might not see many right now. They're usually a bit younger, because they're going to be 16, 17 years old or so right now. Yeah, 16 to 17. But this is also their way of talking. And then again, here there's so much elements that is funny, like drop in and IRL, lag, stream, and maybe we can put the link later on, but I actually found on Instagram this professor at at the high school in the United States who delivered a speech all based on the way the Generation Alpha talks, and it's hilarious. So maybe we can give you that link and you can listen to it, but it is really hilarious. Okay. Any questions on this? Do you find this useful? Do you find this looking at this more of a complete different way? Does it help you?
I think it's interesting with the emojis. So I used to work in a tech startup a year ago, and we used to laugh about how I was using my emojis in messages to the rest of the team. They would be like, Sarah, do you know you're being a little bit rude? Because I would just do a thumb up emoji, and that is apparently quite unsettling for someone in a younger generation. Apparently they don't, that's passive aggressive. And I was like, no, I'm just saying, yeah, I've got it. And it's interesting. They were like, no, sorry, you can't do that. And I did something else, and they were like, you can't do that either. And I hadn't anticipated it. But when you've now started showing it like that, and I can be like, I'm definitely a millennial. That that laughy emoji, the hands up, the fire, definitely my regularly used emojis. I think that's the thing that's nailed it on the head for me, is the emojis and their different meanings.
Yeah, I think for me, have you guys seen Adolescence or heard of the film Adolescence?
Yes, I have heard of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just really illustrates also this divide between like the parents and the kids have their emojis meaning something totally different. And the parents are like, but that means you love the comment, right? And then it's like, actually, no, the kid's being bullied. Like, it looks like the person's loving on the kid's comments and stuff, but these are totally different meanings. So I feel like this is so interesting because it just highlights how much can get missed just from this generational kind of divide. And I also kind of like secretly hate realizing how far I am from the other generations, like the ones who are coming after. But I also am also delighted by how I was when I first started, which was very like mission driven and all about purpose. And it's like, finally, people are catching up. And then I'm recognizing where I'm still kind of like back there where I like my traditional ways sometimes. So it's really interesting, I think, being in like all the different generations almost and kind of living them all at once and then really being blind to a lot that's happening, but also really in it. So it's just been super helpful to kind of map things. And yeah, I'm loving it. Thank you.
Oh, it's good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay. Danielle, you wanted to say something?
Oh, no, just that everything that you've said so far, I just thought that all these years that I was doing it in my teams, well, with the culture and the vision and communication, I thought I was going mad, but it's just nice to have it all reaffirmed that it's all actually, it has all worked, and it does work. So thank you for just reaffirming that I haven't been going mad.
Oh, you haven't gone mad. You're doing the right thing.
With what I've been doing, because I truly believe that having a culture in a business and giving everybody a goal to work towards and a mission to that everyone has to have meaning in what they do, because you are going to work and you are all together for such a long period of time, and especially sort of with that generation, they do need to have something to aim towards. They don't just want to go to work and do their job every day and go home. They do want to have some sort of meaning in their work, and they want to have something to get behind. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate. So just one more thing I wanted to bring up. I mean, there's so much to say about all of this, but one more thing is how do we communicate also? So there's the formal and informal, there's the written and the verbal, there's the synchronous and asynchronous. So what does that mean? Synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous is one we're doing right now. We're talking, we're having a conversation. It's usually on the phone, it's usually on digital meetings. That's is happening or face to face. But the asynchronous, usually it's written, but unfortunately there's a gray area in that, and then we'll talk about that gray area because there are a lot of written tools that have become actually synchronous tool, and there's something that needs to be usually given to the team so they understand which is synchronous and asynchronous. I think you can go to the next slide. Wait, hold on. No, that was on this. I don't know. Yeah, the architecture of communication. You just did that. Okay, can't see it. All right, so now you're good. You're good. Actually, baby boomers, can you go one more up? Perfect. So, what are baby boomers like to use? So, of course, it's emails, Facebook in terms of digital, and that's it. In terms of non-digital, it's phone call and face-to-face. That's really simple for them. They're not that complicated. So as you know that, you need to make sure that when you have any communication with them, it has to be one of those. Everything else is going to be a bit challenging for them, or they will feel maybe a bit left to the side if you're starting to have more communication with them on a WhatsApp. Although some of them have gotten to it, of course, but just in general, this is what they want. The next one is Gen X. So Gen X is also email, text messaging. LinkedIn is a big way. Well, especially if you're recruiting Gen Xers, go on LinkedIn, you'll find them there, and they definitely are, on the messaging there. So if you're trying to recruit those people, definitely the right platform to go. Non-digital is, of course, phone call, in-person meeting. And then they like to have a great balance between the two. They're really good at using a bit of everything. The next one is your millennials. So, of course, in digital, you've got text, WhatsApp, social media, email. So they're not really big on other aspects. So, just make sure that if you decide to use WhatsApp, that everyone knows how to use it. And if you get a lot of boomers, then you need to make sure you train them on use it. And that's also the one I was saying, the text and the WhatsApp, all of these actual platform that are supposed to be asynchronous means that they're written, and usually asynchronous, you send it, you don't expect a response right away. Normally, it sits there and you can answer it whenever you have time. Unfortunately, maybe fortunately, I don't know. Text and WhatsApp and all of these platforms have become synchronous. So people expect an answer right away, and especially these. If you don't answer them right away on a WhatsApp, they'll think ghosted. So I think it's really important to make clear, if you're using WhatsApp as a group, make it clear with your team what kind of communication is this. Are you expecting an answer within the next following 20 minutes? Or is it okay to let it sit and answer in 2 hours from now? That's what an email is. An email is an asynchronous communication. So it is meant to stay there and you can answer it when you have time, which is not always the case in some companies. So just make sure that in your company, it is actual well-defined. So of course, non-digital, it's face-to-face and team collaboration. And then of course, the insight is convenience and casual tone. These, so it's TikTok, Snapchat, messaging app, any, video call. This is what they like to communicate digitally. So you see there's a bit of a difference with the millennials. So again, when you have, if you have a team who's got, you've got, let's say, a quarter of each in your team, then you're going to need to put really nicely in place a guideline, so no one feel ghosted, no one feel left behind, no one feel like they didn't answer on time, no one feel like stressed out because they need to answer this email right away when you don't expect the email to be answered, for the next following, I don't know, 12 hours, for example. So be really clear on how do you want to use these communication channels so people really know what to do. And then for the alphas, just coming up, just keep that in mind. You're going to have a lot of voice assistant, a lot of interactive app and games. That's what they like to do. And actually, the whole voice assistant and AI assistant is going to be extremely big. So as a leader, get yourself started to look into all of this AI tools, because you're going to need that in probably in the next 5 years, not even that, next 3 years, I think. So last but not least, how do you build a architecture of communication? So it's a strategy, and I'm just giving you a couple overview. And if you ever wanted to build a very strong strategy and you need someone to help you out with it, don't hesitate to reach out. That's what I do. I do workshop where we can work with the team on making sure you have thought about every single aspect. And yes, it's, doing some collaborating SWOT, so you can kind of do an analysis first, organizing a hackathon or a workshop, however you want to call it, defining some goals. So OGSMs stands for objective, goals, strategy, and measurement. And then also, creating a collective plan that has solution and who is handling those. Okay, so then you need to make sure that you've got kind of pods of people that are handling some of the solution. And then of course, how do you communicate this across all of your team member, but also across the department? As I found that town meetings are really good. They really helps to get everyone in there in order to create a better communication across, information. So these are things that you need to do, but all of this has to be done as a team. And then if you're a Gen Xer as a leader, just keep reminding yourself, I got my team to say something about this. I need my team to say something about this. So do it with the team, and it's so much easier anyway. So, but these are the elements you can do. And again, if you need some help, don't hesitate to reach out. So at the end, I always say curiosity is one of the important aspects, and I don't know if you knew the percentage of adults that are curious and genius is actually really, really small compared to young kids. So you Gen Z and you Alpha, they will regenerate your organization. They are so curious. They bring into the table something that's absolutely incredible, because starting at 31 years old, only 2% of us are curious and genius at finding new solutions. So use these young generation to come out with something that's completely outside of the box into your communication channel. Because if you look at the next slide, ultimately, the meaning at work can only be about curiosity. Because if you are not curious and your team is not curious and your team is not allowed to be curious, then automatically you're going to stay in the same way of doing things, and you're going to lose many aspects. And because of technology and what's happening with AI, you're going to be left behind. So use the talents of each generation and make sure that they involve in designing your strategy. Because if you go to the next slide, these guys over there, are going to be your new co-worker soon. So be ready for those. Do you have any question, any comments?
I definitely think you're right about needing to start to use AI, and I think we hopefully won't go to robots, but I think the next generation are, I don't know if more efficient, but they'll be using AI. And I think at the moment we're on the cusp of something where you still need to check AI, and AI is not the answer, if that makes sense. Like, you might get an answer, but it's not necessarily the right answer. And I think the next generation is becoming very reliant on it, and we need to be there to understand if they're using it or not. Is some of the responses they give, if they're writing emails to guests, are they using AI and then checking it? You know, that sort of stuff. I think if you're not planning for the future where they're going to start using these tools, it would be very interesting. But I've loved this, Fabienne. I thought and it's been funny as well. I've really enjoyed it. It's been so much fun. You're fantastic at doing this.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, it's the emojis. I still can't move on from the emojis. I'm so sorry.
Nice.
Well,
sorry.
Go ahead, please. You have a question?
Well, I was going to say I second what Sarah was going to say. I use AI every single day, and I would never go back. And I think that I'm kind of thankful of the experience that I've had, some of it, of just sitting there and having to do the grunt work, because I can sense check. I do have the experience to be able to say yes or no or maybe. And so, yeah, I'm a strong advocate. I'm a bit of a technophile a bit, and also I'm a skeptic. So it's like, okay, let's stay grounded in what actually this all means. But my hope is that AI clears the space for us to have more creative thinking time, and that's valued enough by an organization where they can say, okay, you could do what you used to do in like a half a day rather than 3 weeks. Now go be creative, instead of, okay, now you're going to just go make more sales. And like, you still don't have time for creativity. It's like, okay, I think we need to really value the creativity and the innovation and the possibility, the space that AI clears up for it or creates for it. So that's my hope.
Yeah. Good. Well, thank you so much for your feedback and being here today. If you're, I think the next couple of slides are my information. So it's like, I'll be actually at Spy Life. I don't know if anyone will be at Spy Life in the next following couple of weeks.
I will be.
So if you want to learn more or talk more, I will be doing some things on leadership, very similar, different in this, more focus on leadership. And then I also will be at Champions. We're doing a leadership class or seminar on October 14th. So if you're interested, just let me know. And you can find all my information, of course, here on Spawell. And you can also go to my website, which is fabiennegl.com. I have some blogs also there. I've got a few things. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything.
So can people sign up to the leadership movement at Champneys? People can sign up to attend that?
Yeah, exactly. So right now we are opening the actual sign up and registration mid-June.
Oh, share that.
Starting mid-June. Yeah, I will share the invitation on Spawell, and you're welcome to sign up. All the information will be there. But mid-June, there'll be limited spots because we can't put a whole lot of people in the room because it's very interactive. So,
brilliant.
But yes, you can sign up starting mid-June.
Thank you so much, Fabienne. I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to post this out because I messed up with the link in the invite. I'm going to download it and share it with everyone in an email so people can see it, because it was my mess up on that side.
No worries.
Thank you, though.
We worked it out. It worked. We were here. We were able to do it. So that's all good. You know, like
thank you.
My thumbs up of my
don't thumbs up.
Gen X.
Thank you very much.
All right.